sit down singing some blues, baby. Ooh, gonna try my best to be politically correct. Said I'm gonna sit down singing some blues, baby. Ooh, Lord, I try my best to be politically correct. And so you won't mistake me for the white patriarchal power structure, honey. I'm gonna sing this song with an African-American dialect. I got them PC blues, baby. Ooh, Lord, they won't let me call my baby gown. I said I got them PC blues, baby. Ooh, Lord, they won't let me call my baby gal.
Good evening. Are we live now?
So they won't even let me call my baby.
Coyle, and you're watching and listening to a public conversation. And tonight we have two interviews with candidates for the Attorney Generalship of the state of Montana. Our first interview is over the phone with the incumbent Attorney General Joe Mazurek, a Democrat, and waiting patiently in the wings is Larry Baer, state senator from Big Fork area, and he'll be coming on to the set and talking with us at length after we finish with Joe Mazurek. So we're going to go right to that. Hello.
Hello.
You're on the air. Joe Mazurek?
Yes, McCarthy, how are you?
Great. Thanks for joining us.
Yes, I apologize again that I can't be there in person.
All right. Joe, could you just give us a really brief rundown on your professional career, please?
Yes, I can. I graduated from the University of Montana in 1970 and then spent 2 years as an Army officer and returned to the University of Montana. I graduated from the U of M Law School in 1975. I returned to my hometown of Helena and practiced law with a private law firm there for 18 years. Spent 12 of those 18 years in the Montana Senate, a 2-year term as president, and then in 1992 I ran for Attorney General and was elected.
Mm-hmm. What do you do for the fun of it?
Excuse me?
What do you do for the fun of it?
Coach my kids' soccer and basketball teams. I raise kids and try to enjoy Montana with my family.
Okay. And Joe, you sit on, as part of your responsibilities when you're elected to the as Attorney General, you have a seat on certain state boards, right?
Yes, 2 by statute. The State Land Board, obviously, which all of the statewide elected officials sit on, and also on the Board of Examiners. The Attorney General and the Secretary of State and the Governor serve on the Board of Examiners, which issues bonds and handles financial transactions for the state of Montana. And I also sit by appointment as a member of the Montana Board of Crime Control as well.
Mm-hmm. And now this is a partisan office. What does it mean? What does it mean to you to be a Democrat? And I say that both in general as well as what is an Attorney General who is a Democrat?
Well, first of all, what does it mean to me to be a Democrat? I chose to run as a Democrat for the state legislature, I guess primarily because I felt that Democrats were generally more concerned about issues that were important to me, like free, quality public education. They believed in that an education will lead to a more informed and more economically successful populace. They care about things like the quality of the environment and care about working people and want to see all boats rise. And so that's the reason I think that I'm a Democrat. I would have to admit that I find that being Attorney General and being the Chief Legal Officer and the Chief Law Enforcement Officer, there aren't a lot of policy issues that are decided on a partisan basis, because generally what my job is to enforce the law. I don't make policy decisions like I did when I was in the legislature. I defend laws passed by the legislature when their constitutionality is challenged. I suppose in terms of the policy-making decisions where I have the greatest opportunity to exercise judgment, which may be political, if you will, or have a greater opportunity to be partisan,
and that's something I'm going to be touching on later.
Yeah.
The AG's office is often seen as a stepping stone towards the governorship or another high office. Now, I know it's easy for you guys to say, oh, no, I'm not interested, etc. But what do you see ahead for yourself, and what would you eliminate and what would you include as...
Well, let me just disabuse you of that one
Okay.
notion to begin with. Actually, it's interesting. I think that's a common perception, is that AG is a stepping stone to Attorney General. Mark Roscoe is the only Attorney General of the last 22 who have tried to move from AG to become governor. Others who have tried have not been successful. And I'm not sure why that is, but that is a recent trend. And I guess, I'm running for this job again because I love the job. I think it's a very important job, and I want to do it well. I don't know what the future may hold. I mean, I don't have a course that I've charted out. I wouldn't rule out anything, and I don't have my eye on anything.
How much do you...
I want this job because, frankly, most people who've served in this job, including President Clinton, many others, Walter Mondale was another one, who said the best job they ever had was being Attorney General. And so that it's one that I have enjoyed a lot. I think it's an important position, and I want to get reelected here and do the job. In some respects, I wish there weren't a term limit, but I do think term limits have a role. But I'd like to be able to serve in this job longer because I have enjoyed it a lot and think it's a very important position.
Didn't you recently get a raise?
No, not well. There was a bill which passed the legislature which would give a raise in 1997. All statewide elected officials' salaries are going to be set based on the average of 5 neighboring states: North and South Dakota, Wyoming, Idaho, Montana, are the 5 states. But that will not be until July of 1997. So whoever is elected to this office this year would get a raise, and I think.
So how much do you get paid now?
I get paid. I think I get paid about $51,000 a year.
Do you deserve more?
I'm happy with the salary. I knew what it was when I ran for the job. I think
Okay.
I'm the lowest paid. I'm not. If not, I'm one of the lowest paid attorneys general in the country. But I'm not complaining. I mean, I have an adequate salary. I'm trying to put my kids through college like others, but I'm not complaining. I knew what the salary was when I ran for the job and didn't ask for the raise. So.
What you consider your major accomplishments in this present term?
I think the major accomplishments that I would list are first of all, getting things done. There were a number of open issues when we took the job. We were looking at, finally, after 20 years of effort, bringing online a new Montana Law Enforcement Academy. We successfully implemented a workers' compensation and welfare prosecution program. We're in the process of implementing one on Medicaid fraud. We've improved the services to local law enforcement agencies, which is our primary mission at the Department of Justice, by improvements at the State Crime Lab. I think the Duncan McKenzie case is an example of a matter that had gone on for 20 years, and we, with our staff working closely with other agencies in state government, were able to end a 20-year case that had been on appeal for that long and complete the sentence that was ordered by the court some 21 years before. And I think most of all, more than anything else, I'm proud of just the relationship and the support we have provided for local law enforcement agencies, and that's our primary mission.
And your chief disappointment so far this term?
I think I continue to believe that we can improve the way in which we deliver legal services to the state, and I think we're making some improvements. Governor Roscoe and I jointly were charged by the legislature to report back on ways in which we can improve legal services generally to all of state government. One of the things that I think some people don't realize is that most of the lawyers in state government do not work and aren't under the supervision of the Attorney General.
They are not.
They're not. They're about 20% of the lawyers, slightly over 30 out of 140 work for the Attorney General. The balance work for the governor in the various agencies. And we've been working together with the governor, trying to bring more of a law firm atmosphere to lawyers who do represent state agencies, and I think that there are good lawyers who work for state government. I think we can do a better job working together and sharing resources, making sure that we are able to communicate, train together, share information that would make us do our jobs better. It's something that was a priority when I ran. We've made some progress. We're reducing our reliance on hiring outside attorneys, but I think there's continues to be room for improvement, and we're working on that and making some progress. I guess like many things, you'd like to see it come faster, but it's not always easy to make change.
But now, I sometimes I don't get the full picture. I mean, when you say the Department of Justice, for example, I mean, your office has what's your major connection to the state prison system, right?
We really have no connection to the state prison system.
Okay.
The Montana Department of Justice, under the Attorney General's office, is the fourth largest department in state government, fourth or fifth now with some of the reorganizations. But we really are more of a Department of Public Safety. We have a very broad and diverse responsibility. We first of all, we provide all the criminal appellate legal services. We handle most of the major cases brought against the state. We have a law firm which does private, essentially acts like a private law firm to other agencies of state government. That's in the Legal Services Division. Then we have the Criminal Investigation Bureau, Narcotics Investigations Bureau, which provides investigative services to local law enforcement agencies. We run the State Crime Lab. We run the State Law Enforcement Academy in Bozeman, although soon moving to Helena, to train all of the law enforcement officers, jailers. Soon we hope to be training corrections officers as well. We regulate gambling, issue all the licenses, collect all the taxes, do all the enforcement work, remit the taxes back to local governments. We run the Motor Vehicle Division, which means you license your car. We do the title and registration. We issue the driver's licenses. We also, the Montana Highway Patrol is under the Attorney General's office in the Department of Justice. So, I mean, I think you can see from that we have a broad range of responsibilities, primarily in the law enforcement area.
What's your budget?
Our budget is about almost just over $65 million a year. There are almost 650 employees, the largest being in the organization being the Montana Highway Patrol, which has 212 uniformed officers and about 250 people total, including dispatchers and communication people and truck inspectors and others.
And your own office there in Helena, meaning you say you have 30 attorneys working with you?
Yes,
more or less.
There are about just over 30 attorneys who work.
How many women attorneys?
Probably half or more are women.
Any you have Native American attorneys working up there?
We do not. At least not in the Montana Department, or not in the Department of Justice.
Joe, if you won another term as AG, what changes would you wish to make?
I'd like to continue our efforts to improve the quality of legal services. Frankly, an area that we've devoted a great deal of time to and intend to do more, and that is to use the office to enhance efforts to reduce the one area where we're seeing the biggest growth in criminal activity, and that's violent offenses committed by young offenders. We are in the process of completing a work of a task force which is headed by Senator Fred Van Valkenburg on it's called the Attorney General's Youth Violence Task Force, where we will be recommending a plan of action to communities to attack the increasing incidents of violent crime committed by juveniles. We're seeing a rapid escalation in the use of methamphetamine across the state. It manifested itself first in Billings in southeastern Montana. Most recently, it's showing up in Missoula, Helena, Great Falls, and Butte. And it's a serious concern, and it's one of the things that troubles me is and you've seen some of this in Missoula, and that's the incidents or indications that gang activity is coming this direction. In fact, there was methamphetamine involvement in the gang activity which showed up in Missoula this past spring, or this past fall, I'm sorry. And we've seen meth labs here. It's a drug that is sort of a poor man's cocaine, yet it makes its users much more violent. The social consequences are greater both within families and in terms of law enforcement having to deal with them. think one of the things we do is we train and support law enforcement agencies, and we need to make sure that we attack these problems and maintain the quality of life that we have in this state.
Joe, do you believe in mandatory minimum sentencing?
I think depending on the offense, I think there are appropriate cases for mandatory minimum sentences. I think one of the best things that is happening right now, the legislature during the last session is evaluating the sentencing practices generally in the state through the Sentencing Commission. And one of the things that they're doing is they are looking at the sentencing practices, how long people are incarcerated, and looking at outcomes to provide an information base from which we can plan how we want a correction system to operate. I mean, right now it's been reported that the governor's office or the Department of Corrections and the governor are looking at having to ship prisoners out of state. We're undoubtedly, the legislature is going to be faced with building more expensive prison space to house prisoners. Many prisoners are currently who have been sentenced to Montana State Prison are being held in county jails. That's not a healthy situation. I think that we need to, before we spend lots and lots of money building new prisons, we need to make sure that the sentencing practices we use are what we really need. Do all the prisoners need to be housed in Montana State Prison? We're starting on a regional prison plan. Should we be housing less, first-time property offenders or first-time offenders in community settings in these regional prisons where they may not require the level of security that exists in the Montana State Prison? I think we need a comprehensive look at corrections practices so that the legislature doesn't just add time or make more punishments harsher or increase mandatory minimums without thinking what the ramifications and costs are of that in the long run. I think the public wants people to pay for their crimes. I think we have to look as well as at what the cost of that incarceration is.
Joe, two things I wanted to say. Larry Baer is here, and he'll be coming on. He's sitting right across from me, listening. He was very anxious to have been here with you together, but in any event, Larry and I will get down to brass tacks ourselves. But ordinarily, this is going out live to Missoula now, and we usually take call-ins. In this case, I'm having to relay some questions that are coming in, and so I'll do the best I can. Question: why didn't Joe Mazurek stand up for Jay Prince against the Brady bill?
Well,
and I guess we're talking.
We made a decision that the law was being challenged by Sheriff Prince, and we felt that Mr. Prince could adequately represent the interests, since it was a matter that was being imposed on local law enforcement. He could represent the interests of his own personal interest. We simply felt it was a matter of allocation of resources, that it was not a fight that we were named in. The Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers opted not to get involved. I think Sheriff Prince had a point in the sense that it was an unfunded federal mandate, which, in fact, continues to cause financial problems in local communities. But the law was passed by the federal government. We opted to try to work with gun dealers and the NRA and others to find a way to implement the law if it was going to be the law of the land. And as a law enforcement officer, we felt that was our responsibility. We did assemble a working group to try to make the law work that was there in the event it was going to be upheld. And although that final determination has not been made because it's still moving through the courts, we'll comply with the law if it's passed, and if it's thrown out, that'll be the end of it.
Joe, sometimes we think that we're very unlike other places in America, but we seem to be like other places in America in the proportion of minority prisoners in the Montana prison system, which seems quite high relative to their numbers in the general population. Should this give you and the rest of us pause to reflect, or should we just assume that minorities naturally get in trouble more than Anglos do?
Well, I think we have, all you have to do is look at the numbers. have a
talking about the
disproportionately
justice
high
system.
Native American population in our state prison system, and I think that's attributable to a number of factors: poverty on reservations, just many of the social problems that have existed on reservations, many as a result of lack of economic development on reservations. If Native Americans leave the reservations, they sometimes face difficult challenges in urban communities.
Well,
Many of the problems are related to alcohol. It's a difficult situation.
But I think one of the questions that the critics raise when you read about this is, even accepting everything that you just recited, that there's a far deeper problem. That is to say, in the judicial system itself. That for example, maybe if you're not a minority, you have just a better chance of making it through. Let's say you get in trouble, but if you're not a minority, you have an easier chance somehow to slip through the system and get the probation or hire the lawyer or get more attention.
I don't know that that's true, and I think by and large most people who are in the criminal justice system charged with crimes, minorities or not, most of them tend to be represented by public defenders, and there's a very small percentage of people who are represented by private attorneys on criminal charges. And so I guess I would ask, if this is in the form of a question, from a caller, I would be curious if they...
No, that was back to me.
Yeah, I don't know if there are statistics which would verify that or not. I tend to think not. And there is a sentence review commission which reviews sentencing determinations to ensure that in different parts of the state that there's there's a review of sentences and a check and balance to ensure that persons in one part of the state are not sentenced disproportionately longer for the same offense as people from other part of the state. I wouldn't suggest that I have all the answers by any means to what, but to the question, in the sense that why is there a disproportionately higher population of Native American prisoners in the Montana prison system? But it's a fact, and that is the case, and I suggest that it is one that's probably based largely in economics and other social ills.
Joe, now you in your position, you can step right up to the legislature and suggest that they alter or amend or repeal a particular law. I mean, is that within?
That's just like any other citizen. I don't have any special status to do that, but we have an opportunity to propose legislation, and we do that to some extent. Although one of the things I'm most proud of in that capacity is during the last legislative session, and we've laid the groundwork to do it again. We presented the legislature last time with a combined law enforcement agenda, which brought together the legislative proposals by the Montana Sheriffs and Peace Officers, the Montana Police Protective Association, which is the street officers, the Montana Chiefs of Police, the County Attorneys Association, the Department of Corrections, and the Montana Department of Justice proposed an agenda of public safety issues, and everyone working together to make sure it was not a huge list, a small list, but that we would work together to accomplish what we believed were the most important issues for law enforcement and public safety during the 1995 session, and we hope to do the same again in 1997.
Joe, am I correct that your office is now defending the state law which makes sodomy, homosexual acts, illegal? With a subject.
There has been a challenge to the sodomy statute.
It's a class action suit, isn't it?
A person by the name of Grizon and 6 other plaintiffs. They have filed basically a declaratory judgment action seeking to have the statute held unconstitutional as a violation of the Montana's constitutional right to privacy. Judge Jeffrey Sherlock ruled against the state in the district court here in Helena, and we have appealed the matter to the Montana Supreme Court. It's really the first time that Montana's privacy provision is being asked to be interpreted, at least in the context of this statute, and we felt that it was important that that issue be resolved, be addressed in the Montana Supreme Court. The legislature passes the laws. It's the obligation of the Attorney General to defend the constitutionality of those statutes passed by the legislature, and that's what we're doing.
I was hearing myself stutter and go, and I just have to say, a couple of weeks ago I got a call from a radio station in Washington, D.C., and they wanted me to go to Lincoln and do an actuality on the Unabomber, right? So I did. I rode up there with a good friend of mine, and like everybody else, I got up to the barricades, and that's as far as I got, and then I went to the payphone and called the radio station in D.C., collect, and made my my 5-minute, on-the-spot report from Lincoln, Montana, and then I finished that, and the editor got on with me afterwards and said, "Too many uhs, Mr. Coyle, too many uhs." Anyway, all right, a little bit, bear with me on this one, Joe.
Okay?
The 7-Up Pete Mine
Yes.
wants to gear up. Let me see if I lost my, I got about, let's see, the 7-Up Pete Mine wants to gear up for a major gold mining venture near Lincoln. Now, much of the land they wish to mine is state-owned land, school trust lands. Now, your own Assistant Attorney General, George Shunk, in discussing what your report characterized as the region's illegal land dealings over the years, said that there is a constitutional mandate that land be held in the public trust and that obtaining full market value is not the only definition of the public trust. Well, could we then make an analogy with these school trust lands up near Lincoln, where the gold mine would go, and say that the public trust might require that we not permit mining there? Could you comment?
Well, the permitting process that is ongoing now is being conducted by the Department, in combination of the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Environmental Quality. The land board's role in that process, where I am a member, would be to review and approve any operating plan that would be conducted on state land. And the trust responsibility that the members of the land board have is a fiduciary responsibility, and there is some debate about what that role is. Typically the responsibility of a trustee is to maximize the return to the trust. We have a corpus which is in the form of land and resources such as timber, minerals, grazing land, agricultural land for wheat production, and so forth. And I think what the land board tries to do is to balance those interests. But overall, the objective is to raise funds for the Common School Trust. That's why the lands were given to the Common School Trust under the enabling.
Are you suggesting there that let's just?
We're not talking about transferring those lands, and the question is whether should mining be permitted there. I think you have to balance you have to take into consideration the value of the public asset itself as the land, or there may be mineral interests that would yield money as well. There may be adverse impacts on the stream that would have detrimental impacts not only on the environment, perhaps on the economy as well. I mean, those are the sorts of considerations which I think the land board takes into account, and they approach them on a case-by-case basis to try to weigh the pros and cons. It's a little bit different than what the Department of Environmental Quality or the Department of Natural Resources would be going through, because they're actually making a determination whether the permitting should be allowed under the mine siting laws, the environmental requirements, and so forth. The land board's restriction, or the land board's view, is the impact of this a mining operation already permitted on state lands. Should we go along with it? Should we allow the state lands to be used for that purpose, I mean, that's typically we would have to approve the permitting. But in fact, I believe in most instances these mining companies have the lands under lease to the state or from the state already as part of their initial exploration process. And really, what we would be looking at would be the whether the operating plan is acceptable to the land board on those state lands.
Although, I mean, you did suggest that, you know, the income is a major responsibility, that, let's say, in your posture on the land board. That, I mean, are you saying that you would be remiss if you were to say, no, the value somehow to the state of Montana, and we are known for having what we call a green constitution, with major commitments to protecting the environment. Are you saying that as you see it constitutionally, that you would be remiss if you did not give great weight to the money? I mean, the company's pie chart showed Montana Tech getting $55 million over the life of the mine, as I recall. Hey, that buys a lot of that could buy a lot of passivity.
Yeah, and I'm not sure what Montana Tech how that would fit into this, but you know,
well,
obligations of a trustee by law are a fiduciary, and it is to maximize return. But that I don't think you can look only at the money side. I mean, I think there are additional considerations. I mean, the objective is to maximize income to the trust. It's the same in the timber area, but that doesn't mean you run out and cut all the timber because you can get the most money. You have to manage for the long term. You don't necessarily try to maximize the dollars in today if it means you damage the corpus of the trust and thereby reduce your return. And I think those are the sorts of issues that the land board looks at. Presently we have under consideration a forest management plan, which will be considered at the land board meeting in June. And it's been a lengthy exercise by the Department of Natural Resources and Conservation, formerly the Department of State Lands, which managed the state lands, at trying to balance those interests between the need to sell timber to raise money for the Common School Trust, to manage timber on a sustainable basis, but also to recognize that there are other interests out there, such as managing the forest in a way that will result in hunting availability, public access to those lands, and so forth. So what the land board tries to do is balance those interests, recognizing that the responsibility is to return money to the Common School Trust, but also to keep an asset base, i.e. these public lands, that will benefit future generations as well.
Recently, going back, this is something I referred to a moment ago, your office issued that investigative report showing that the university regents engaged in illegal sales of 2,200 acres valued at $4.5 million, and your report suggested that it would be best if the legislature, post facto, approved these past illegal acts. Now, that may seem pragmatic, but in the eyes of many, from the way I'm looking around, the entire deal had the odor of ethical corruption.
Well, see, and I guess I would disagree with that in this respect. The issue really was whether the Board of Regents and the units of the university system have to comply with the general requirements of law regarding the disposition of lands which they no longer need for university purposes. And the regents have taken a position, and it's an arguable one, that as the Board of Regents, they had the authority to manage the university property under the Constitution, that they, because of their unique status as a constitutionally ordained or created body, that they had the authority to manage all those resources. I mean, what got us into this was the situation with the Fort Missoula lands, and frankly, that was one which didn't look as good as it should. And I think that's so that the investigation began there at the request of a group of citizens in Missoula. And I think even in that case, the regents agreed that transfer probably wasn't conducted as it perhaps should have been in terms of public notice, public bidding, and so forth. We then, as a result of general laws for disposition of land. At least they involve public notice. Most of them involved appraisals, sales for at or very close to the appraised value, which would appear to be market value. I mean, there are a few exceptions, but by and large, I think the university units which sold these lands, which they no longer needed, got reasonable prices for the land, put the money into the university system for university benefits. And the point is, having gone back and looked at them, it appears that because even though they may not have technically complied with the general disposition requirements, they did comply with the spirit of them, and it would be to no one's advantage to avoid all those sales and go through the process of having to refund money back. I mean, it's to people who purchased, and so we were looking. It seemed to be the best course would be to try to find a way to ratify these transactions, whether it could be done by the land board or perhaps by the legislature. I don't think that this investigation, it was certainly not our conclusion that there was any, that there were ethical violations, that people were benefiting from these privately from these transactions, that they were by and large reasonable sales of land that was no longer needed. And that was the basis of the recommendation, that the regions probably should have, as other agencies of government do, comply with the technical requirements regarding the sale of and disposition of lands no longer needed for the institutional purpose. But by and large, they did comply with the spirit of it, and that's why we felt that this corrective action was necessary. But at this point, that's nothing more than a recommendation. The land board will ultimately make that decision.
How much money do you plan on raising and spending for your campaign?
Well, 4 years ago, I raised and spent about $150,000. Frankly, I think it will be difficult to raise much money this go around. The campaign limits have been the total or maximum contribution allowable has been reduced from $750 to $200. So I would like to. I don't know what we'll try to. We'll try to raise as much as we can. I suspect Senator Baer and I will do a lot of traveling around and appearing together, and that's probably I don't know what he plans to do, but we'll I'm sure have a vigorous campaign, and frankly, I think the best campaigns are ones that are where candidates get out and meet people and talk to people and appear at forums, and much like we would be doing tonight if I had been able to get there. And again, I apologize for that.
Well, Joe, we're going to give your opponent a crack here now, and I appreciate you taking the time. And
I've not had an opportunity to see Larry since he filed, and I just wish him good luck, and I'll look forward to seeing you along the way, Senator Baer.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks very much, Joe.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye. Senator Larry Baer, come on up. Thanks. You know how to diddle it there? Let's see those things. You're watching and listening to a public conversation. My name is McCarthy Coyle. We're coming to you from the studios of Missoula Community Access Television. And as usual, we have our all-volunteer crew here, to whom I extend so many generous thank yous for always being around to help. To Larry Baer, thanks for being patient and waiting that telephone interview out. Larry Baer has been in the Montana State Senate. You were elected first in 94, so you're in the middle of a 4-year term.
Correct.
And you were born and grew up in the Midwest, near Chicago, 25 miles or so.
Chicago Heights, Illinois, 25 miles southwest of Chicago.
Right, and it sounded a little bit like a blue-collar background to begin with. You were a steel worker for a while, you said?
I was a steel worker. I was an auto mechanic. I was a law enforcement officer. I did a lot of things. I learned to work with my hands as well as my mind.
and then you went in the Navy, or you went to college first?
That's correct. I went to college at Indiana University. I joined the Navy subsequently, met my wife Shirley. We've been married for 28 years, and my lifelong dream has been to live and work in Montana, and very fortunately I was able to purchase property while I was in the Navy 29 years ago, and have been a lawyer in Montana and have lived in Montana since 1983.
Mm-hmm. And you got your law degree going to night school down around Fresno, California?
I was a retail sporting goods dealer for 15 years in Visalia, California, and I got the urge to do something more with my life and made the decision to go to law school, and I did so in Fresno, California at the Humphreys College School of Law, and worked hard during the day and went to school at night and received my law degree there.
And you live up right around Big Fork?
Yes, we live just north of Big Fork.
And that's Senate District?
Senate District 38.
Right. Well, I'll start out with the last question first. What do you think you're going to wind up spending on this campaign?
Well, we'll spend whatever we're able to raise from the people of Montana who will support me and my endeavors, my ideals. Whatever that amount is, we'll make the very best of it, and we'll use it to be victorious in this race.
Ballpark. I mean, the AG mentioned he spent $150,000, last time out, but he seems to think not much more than that this time.
Well, I'd like to think that my efficient way of using campaign money would enable me to be President of the United States for $150,000. But as I said, I have no idea what we'll be able to acquire from our constituents, as much as I hope will be possible, and as much as money is a factor in the success of a political race. But it is not of primary importance to me. We will do the best we can with what we get.
And you mentioned that your this legislature that you in this term that your the achievement that you felt the most confident about, or happy about, was your work on an ethics bill.
One of my major concerns as an elected official for the state of Montana is that the people from coast to coast in this great country are losing their confidence in the ability of government to represent them objectively and fairly. I perceived that by creating a more stringent requirement in regards to ethics for elected officials and public employees, that people would regain some of the respect that they had lost, feeling that the responsibility and the accountability of people in government had gone sour. Our bill was, it is not everything I had hoped to achieve, but we're very pleased with what we did achieve. And I think it will go a long way to restore the public confidence in their government.
Do you have the reputation of being a very conservative Republican?
I'm a sensibly conservative Republican. Some people have tried to depict me as a radical. I guess all you have to do is agree with an extremist from the opposite side of the spectrum to be called a radical. I'm a very sensible conservative. I believe in people. I believe people should come first.
What has propelled you towards this race in particular? What is it about either this Attorney General in particular or the office itself and the way it's run? Why do you want to be Attorney General of this state? What are you going to do differently?
My basic premise is that we live in the greatest country on earth, and some of the greatest people in that country are Montanans. This country didn't become great because of its government. It became great because of its people. And I feel that government should always try to come closer to its people. It should always realize that it is subordinate to the wishes of its people. It must realize that its size is proportionate to the ability of people to support it. And the size of our current state government is far too large for the necessities that the people of Montana require. It needs to be downsized, so we spend less money, we tax less money, we allow people to take home more of their paycheck to apply to their families and their lives. And this will be an advantage to the people of Montana to overcome some of the very harsh difficulties that they now endure. I believe the Attorney General's office is a very important facet of that. It requires that an Attorney General be very objective in his decisions. It's an important job, it's a powerful job, and the Attorney General's opinions in particular have the force and effect of law until overturned or changed by a court. So it's a tremendous responsibility, requires objectivity, but always keeping in mind that people must come first over government. And at times, it may even be necessary for the Attorney General to protect the people of Montana from its government if that government should become overreaching.
Could you spin that out maybe with an example? That last, when you said with the Attorney General stepping forward to protect the people from the government, as it were.
Well, we have a number of very pertinent issues right now. People are very upset with the hospital merger in Great Falls. The majority of the people in Great Falls apparently are against the merger. Last count I was told was about 6-1 against. They don't feel that it will result in better medical care for a lower price. They fear the monopoly may end up in cost gouges to the people in as much as there's no competition. And some people are upset that some of the restrictions that the Attorney General has placed upon the merger are very personal in nature rather than objective and what are in the best interest of all Montanans.
Got a question? All right. Hello, you're on the air.
Yes. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to ask questions directly of Joe Mazurek, but Senator Baer, now that you're here, I can ask my question. And I've met you before, and I know you to be an honest person and not afraid of stating your position on the issues. And I kind of hope you're the next Attorney General, but you said the Attorney General opinions have the force and effect of law until there's a Supreme Court ruling. And what I don't understand is why this doesn't amount to the same effect as I guess you would call it judicial activism. I mean, it's one person's opinion. What's your perspective on that?
Well, this is why I say it's so important that the Attorney General be perfectly objective in making these determinations, because what he does determine will influence the lives of Montanans until a district court judge or the Supreme Court would rule otherwise. So, and that can take years sometimes. So when an Attorney General makes an opinion, it's pretty much locked in stone until the procedural process of the courts might determine otherwise. So a substantial amount of time could pass between the opinion and, say, a ruling by the court. So it is extremely pertinent that the opinion be objective, it be fair, it be equitable, and it certainly must coincide with the existing laws of Montana. More important than that, our Constitution.
Okay, and one follow-up question. Here in Missoula, there was a Save the Fort initiative, and I'm biased on this, by the way, and I'll present it that way, but the people of Missoula was against having the Fort of Missoula sold. It's a historic site, and our city council here sold it. Then there was an uprising of the people. Petitions were circulated, signed, and the city council eventually backed down.
All right, thanks a lot, caller.
I am somewhat familiar with the issue. I think it is somewhat of a black mark on the procedural aspects of government, and again, very pertinent to the attitude of government toward its people. And I believe that government has forgotten their place and role. They've forgotten their purpose at times, and they need to be reminded that they are subservient to the people. The process that took place that you speak of had a lot of legal infractions. Procedurally, many requirements were not adhered to. It would give the appearance of impropriety to the people that government fails to take the necessary steps for procedural due process in representing its people. I don't think the process was proper in this particular case, and I think it is somewhat of a shameful example of how government goes awry and forgets its position and responsibility and accountability to its people. This is very much like the Board of Regents issue that you recently spoke of with Mr. Mazurek. The law has been broken, the rules have not been adhered to, environmental concerns have not been addressed, and in some cases the properties were sold for less than fair market value. Well, you can't say that just because it will be an imposition to some of the opportunists that were involved in these transactions to impose the law, and that you should ask the legislature to ratify this illegal activity, I think is very reprehensible. I believe the law should be adhered to, the law should be enforced, and people who don't go by the law should receive either the penalties or the necessary hardships that would be incurred by rectification of the mistake. And I think the law is here to be enforced. I don't think special favoritism should be given to anyone. I think we should all be treated with equanimity and equality, and we should all be under the same rules and penalties should we stray from the requirements of the law.
Shifting gears, what's your take on the new federal anti-terrorism law? Now, I've read of both in the Congress, both Republicans and Democrats. It's clearly a minority in this case because the bill passed, and certainly some conservatives on the right and liberals on the left who came together and worried that the bill creates the potential for sweeping examinations of all kinds of organizations under the rubric of fighting terrorism, and that some organizations are already seeing this as creating a chilling effect on their own legitimate political activities.
Well, any legislation by way of hysteria or political correctness has the potential of being disastrous. When the Kennedy brothers were killed, we immediately received the 1968 Gun Control Act, which has done very little or nothing to curb gun crime in this country. We now have the threat of the terrorist bill that you speak of, which on its face looks perfectly appropriate because of the Oklahoma bombing, but that's caused some degree of hysteria too. And we must always be against and fight this type of violent, cruel, criminal activity, but we cannot sacrifice the individual liberties of our people on the altar of political correctness. And I think the terrorist bill is addressing more of a political correctness issue than it is from a necessity to fight terrorism within the boundaries of the United States. It is something we have to address, it's something we have to deter, and it's something that we have to penalize in the most severe manner when these people are brought to justice. But to sacrifice the rights of individuals by way of the Constitution, I think it's terribly inappropriate. And I think people are afraid that this bill and others like it will overreach into that realm of infringing upon our personal liberties.
And I asked this question of Mazurek, and the same to you. So here's the Attorney Generalship, very important post. It's a partisan position, Democrat, Republican, whatever party you're running on. What would make a Republican attorney, what's the connection between, let's say, being a Republican and running a tight ship as Attorney General? What's the crossover there?
Well, the basic premise of being a Republican is to implement government within the means of its people. We have to balance our checkbooks, and so does government. Government is too large, and the best government is the least government. And in downsizing government again, and allowing people to have less tax responsibility, we need to reduce taxes with this downsizing so that people can take home more money to their families, as I said before. We cannot have government solve all of our problems. We must relegate the functions of government to those necessary things that we can't do for ourselves. And the Republican Party is very adamant in maintaining our constitutional rights and our individual liberties, our property rights, that are being very much infringed now by especially federal intrusions into our state in violation of the 10th Amendment. We have states' rights by way of the 10th Amendment, and we must enforce states' rights. And as Attorney General, that would be one of my top priorities, is to stop the unnecessary intrusions and the negative and detrimental results from the federal government imposing upon us not only unfunded mandates, but mandates that do not fall within the enumerated powers granted to them by the Constitution, and protecting us by the 10th Amendment itself.
And what do you do for the fun of it?
For the fun of it, I do a lot of things. I hunt, I fish, I'm a gun enthusiast. I've been a firearms dealer in high-grade collectible antique firearms for almost 30 years. I am an artist. I engrave guns. I rebuild antique guns. I do a lot of things that I enjoy in my life. I have a small farm. I enjoy farming. And I enjoy most of all interacting with my family. All of my kids are adults now, and 2 of them are married, and 1 more to get through college. So that's an occupation in itself.
I've never owned a gun. I'm just one of those people that isn't, for no particular reason except maybe I noticed I still have my rating sheet from the firing range that I was on in basic training, and I think the basic minimum score was like 124, and I had about a 78. So that's the last time so let's say, where do you fit in, like, on this? I mean, we get into all these subtleties about gun control, assault weapons.
Well, it's the definition of an assault weapon and who perceives it. An assault weapon, by many of the more unreasonable elements that are anti-gun, would include just about everything that fires a bullet. Currently, many of the weapons that they call assault weapons are merely semi-automatic rifles that are used for sporting purposes, for match competition, quite extensively for match competition. A lot of young children are brought up through the ranks and learn marksmanship and the safe handling of guns and the proper use of firearms by some of these weapons that they classify as adverse to public interest, labeled assault weapons. And it's a hysterical movement. It has been proven that less than 1% of all the guns used in crimes have fallen under their definition of an assault weapon. And it's a ridiculous infringement upon the legitimate rights of gun owners under the Second Amendment to attack these legitimate objects, which we really do require in our society, under the wrong premise that they are negative and sociological dangers.
I think we got a question for you. Hello?
Good evening. I'd like to ask you, sir, will you enforce the law as regards the Brady law, a 5-day waiting period for those who wish to own a handgun? Will you enforce the law, or will you be like a local sheriff who refuses to enforce the law of the land? I'd be more than happy to hang on and listen for your comments, please.
It will be my duty and responsibility to enforce every law upon the books. And like I tell people who are against many of the laws that we have to adhere to, pay your $15 and run for the legislature and change that law. But don't violate it. Wait until we change it and work toward that purpose in a legitimate and legal manner. Yes, I'll enforce the law. Every
Sir,
bit of it.
would you ask the sheriff who refuses to enforce the law, would you ask him to step aside and appoint someone who, and replace him with someone who will enforce the law?
I think he's referring to Sheriff Prince, right?
You're asking a question without much of a foundation. I don't quite understand the question. I can imagine.
There was a case, sir, a local sheriff, I believe in Ravalli County, correct me if I'm wrong, who refuses to enforce, when the Brady law was passed, he refused to enforce the law as regards a 5-day waiting period for handguns.
It's my basic knowledge that Sheriff Prince filed a lawsuit regarding the Grady. I wish the caller would not interrupt me, please.
I'm not interrupting, sir.
I believe you are. And Sheriff Prince performed admirably in exercising his civic duty and his constitutional right to challenge a law that he felt was unconstitutional and inappropriate in some respects. In regards to those respects of the law, I believe the courts upheld his assertions.
Sir, is it not the duty of the sheriff to enforce the law whether he agrees with it personally or not? Is he not elected to do so, sir?
Certainly is. It's the duty of the sheriff as the chief law enforcement officer of the county to enforce all laws in respect to the directions that they are given to us.
The issue of whether the man filed a lawsuit or not can be argued that that is part of his duty. That is debatable. Yes, sir. I can allow for the fact that the man believes what he believes, and he believes it passionately. I have no quarrel with that. I'm just wondering, sir, if his personal beliefs have any place in his role as a public servant. They do and they don't. You know what I'm saying? But I don't know if this person appears to have been dissatisfied with some aspects of the Brady law. Many people are. You can be assured of that. I'm sure there are probably many people who are dissatisfied with it. I for one am, partially because they didn't absolutely outlaw assault weapons, period. You know, semi-automatic guns, sir, are not for sport. They are not for practice or competition or any such thing. Semi-automatic weapons, in my mind, are created for one reason and one reason only. That is to kill people.
Well, the format of this show, I believe, is for people to express their opinions as provided by the First Amendment.
Absolutely,
The man is
sir.
entitled to his opinion. I strongly disagree with him.
Well, I was going to say, since we didn't have, since we weren't in a position to kick Joe Mazurek around over the air because he was on a telephone connection, I think we'll give Larry Baer a shot at a few more questions. How's that, caller?
Thank you, Mr. Baer, for your time, sir, and have a good evening.
You're welcome. Same to you.
We're looking at these three major mining ventures in Montana that want to be here. Sarco up in the Cabinets near the Idaho border, the 7-Up Pete up in Lincoln, and then the Phelps Dodge or Crown. Is it Crown Butte, the one down in Yellowstone or near Yellowstone Park? How do you take a sight on all of that stuff? I mean, you live in a beautiful territory, Big Fork, the lake, etc. I mean, if a gold mine was going to go up in your backyard, and I mean, you yourself spoke of this land that we treasure here. What's your take on that? What's the story there?
Well, I believe that mining, just as much as any other commercial activity that has some effect upon the environment, must adhere to environmental regulations and concerns and guidelines that are laid out for them, conditioning their procedural aspects of their business. Should any type of an operation like that violate those procedural guidelines, they should be subject to sanction. I believe that the legislature was correct in overturning some of the environmental requirements that were extreme and unnecessary by way of Senate Bill 330, 331. That only brought the pendulum more back to the middle. It brought it from the left extreme to the middle, which coincided. In fact, I think the requirements are still greater than the federal requirements. And they shouldn't exceed the federal requirements. Otherwise, we're telling the federal government they don't know what they're doing. So,
I thought you'd be a man that would appreciate that.
Well, there are some aspects of the federal government that we're not too proud of, but that's government. And our goal is to strive to improve upon these weak areas and to make them better. But getting back to the issue, environmental concerns are very important, but extremism in any aspect is detrimental to the society of man. And extremism in regards to environmentalism or violent acts or anything else would not be tolerated by me as Attorney General in the state of Montana.
So let's say you're the Attorney General. Do you think the state should be in the business of running a lottery?
I'm disappointed in the lottery, as many people are. We don't believe that the expectations of the lottery as far as revenue have really been met. And the use of the lottery funds are somewhat vague and ambiguous. We were to understand that the proceeds were to go to teacher retirement funds and other educational benefits. They would offset the burden of the taxpayer. But that is our greatest burden in the state, by the way, is the funding of education. So it's of a primary concern. I don't believe that the revenue from the lottery has significantly aided us in that respect.
You think we'll ever have major casino gambling in Montana? Is that something you'd...
I hope not. I hope not. But I do support the right of the entrepreneur and the businessman to pursue his business under the current gambling rules. He should not be harassed. He should not be intimidated. Government should not be overbearing in enforcement of the gambling laws in Montana, which some people claim they are right now. And I think the people who are legitimately operating their businesses should be treated with respect.
Got a call, I think. Hello, you're on the air.
Yeah, I just tuned in, and I'm a very concerned Montana citizen regarding the environment. And I'd like to know Mr. Baer's views on the proposed mine in Lincoln and the one at Yellowstone Park.
Well, I hate to be redundant, but my approach to the mining situation is that they follow the rules. They obey all the laws. They adhere to all of the environmental requirements of doing business in their mining operation. That's all we can expect, and we can't impose upon them requirements and restrictions that aren't as a matter of law. That would be unfair. And if you don't believe that the requirements and restrictions are adequate, again, pay your $15 and run for the legislature.
But I think that, excuse me, go ahead, caller. You have a follow-up?
I do. There is the ballot measure that is being taken around the state now to qualify for the election, and I'm just wondering...
Which one is that?
This is to improve the water quality that our past legislative session actually things degraded considerably, and I think that's going to be on the ballot for the voters in Montana to vote on, and I think it will have overwhelming approval, and I'd like to know his position on that.
Well, I think you're exercising your constitutional right to the process of referendum, which I think should be strongly protected in the state of Montana. Some people have said that initiatives and referendums should be abolished. but it's the right of the people to speak their mind and to go through the process appropriately and to achieve the number of signatures that are required for this petition to be validated and then placed on the ballot for Montanans to vote on in one of the upcoming elections. And if Montanans choose to pass this measure by way of an electoral vote and change the law as it came down from Senate Bill 333-31, that's the process, and that's the way it should be. And if it passes, then so be it.
Could I ask one additional?
You betcha.
Would he sign this measure to allow it on the ballot?
Well, you're asking me to sign a measure that would repudiate what I supported in the legislature, and I did support 330 and 331 as I thought it was a legitimate move back to the center, as I said, and would give rational results as far as the restrictions on mining in this state. So no, I would not sign your petition.
I think that what I hear people saying is that issues, well, particularly issues that have to do with matters like water quality, air quality, stuff like that, that there is no left, right, or center. That there is that one can gather data and say, is this good for us or it's bad for us? So I'm just curious, not objecting to it, but I'm curious about your using the analogy of swinging it back to the center, as if there was a right, a left and a center and a right methodology, of analyzing data or whatever.
Well, I'm not using the analogy to describe the conservative movement as opposed to the liberal movement. I'm just saying that a pendulum swings, and if it swings too far to one side, it's out of balance. And all I'm saying is that the former restrictions were somewhat subjective. They were based upon emotion rather than scientific study and scientific data. And we feel that the two Senate bills that we did pass, and we did pass them with great consciousness as to the environment and what is truly best for Montana. We feel that they more reflect an objective approach that would bring things into balance for both the industry in Montana and all of Montanans who are concerned about preserving the quality of our environment.
Hello.
Hi. Yes, I'm still here.
Okay.
And I guess I have to disagree with that. I feel that scientific evidence has proven that the higher amounts of arsenic and other pollutants are much greater now under current law, and we do have to do something to swing it back to where it's safe for all Montanans. And I guess that's all I have to say.
Hey, thanks for calling in.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Perhaps they are greater now than under the former situation, but the requirements are still greater than those required under federal law.
What's your take? I mean, that AG's office is a very powerful one, what's your take on? You've been up in state government a couple of years, and you live up at least near Indian country there, as we call it. What about the relationships between the treaty nations and the state of Montana? In what ways do you see there be any need for improvement in the relationship? What's your take there?
Well, there certainly is a need for improvement in any relationship. You should always strive to increase the equanimity of any relationship. I believe that the Native Americans are Americans, just like we are. They fall under the same laws as do everyone else in this country constitutionally. I realize that they have an autonomy based upon the reservation and the treaty powers that created those reservations. They do appreciate their autonomy, and I think in many respects keeping with traditional standards and customs is extremely important for people like the Native Americans who have a rich history and a rich tradition that shouldn't slip away. And I believe that allowing that tradition to slip away is somewhat of a factor, a causative factor, in crime among their people. And I relate this to all Americans as far as family values and intrinsic values that we must hold dear, and the responsibility and the accountability that we have as parents. We must observe this at all times, and it's also part of the Native American reservations, where these values have somewhat deteriorated, I'm sorry to say, and I'm sure they're very much concerned with that too, is that these values are very important to them. These are fine people who had a wonderful way of life. And it's a problem, but I hope they realize that there are those of us who sympathize with their plight, and yet we are willing to meet them halfway and try and work these things out. But we, again, must be very objective. Objectivity is the cornerstone of my campaign, and we have to be fair with all people.
Where do you fit? Are you pro-choice, pro-life, but where do you fit in that spectrum?
I'm pro-life.
Pro-life. And in the Attorney General's position, then, might that be a quandary for you in terms of the laws that do exist, or is it just something you'd have to live with?
No, it's my duty to enforce the existing laws. And Roe versus Wade is a controversial law, but nevertheless, it is the law.
Right.
And I will exercise all of my power to enforce it until that law is changed. I'd like to see it changed, but until it is changed, I will stand behind it, as I should as Attorney General. I won't use my philosophy on abortion to influence any decision that I make, although I think there was some subjectivity in the hospital merger in Great Falls. As part of the record, my opponent, I think, has allowed his subjectivity on this particular issue to interfere with his good judgment.
Have you been down to the prison? Have you? I mean, I thought maybe as a legislator.
I have, not as a legislature. I have
not as
visited.
An enrollee, though.
No, I've never been on the inside looking out, but I have visited the prison briefly on occasion. I visited the Swan River camp right after the terrible event that took place there, and I have observed their procedures and processes.
Do you think that, and this is, I don't have any answer. Does the prison have enough training facilities and rehab facilities, or is that an investment that could be made or should be made? Do you have any take on that?
I'm not aware of the current status as to training facilities for, are you referring to the guards and the people who work at the prison?
No, I mean, in other words, if there's, let's say, you're in trouble, you're in prison, you have low literacy skills, or you need to pick up a trade or something like that. I mean, I don't know what they have down at Deer Lodge or
well,
I'm not trying to put you on the spot.
No,
I just don't know.
I'm not fully aware of what is available as far as rehabilitation efforts like that. But we have to remember that a prison is a disciplinary situation. It's not a country club. It's not a boys' camp. These people are there for punishment. They are there for a reason. Their constitutional rights must be upheld, and yet they are not active and productive members of our society. They're dangerous people, and that's why they're there. And I feel that our prison system currently is under great stress because of lack of space and lack of prison facilities. We passed the Three Strikes You're Out bill in the past legislative session. I was one of the proponents of an amendment that reduced some of the more violent, heinous crimes to 2 strikes, and I stand behind that. But it also presents a dilemma in as much as where are we going to put all these people? So we have to address that immediately. And one idea is to make the prison system self-supporting in some ways, make it productive in some ways. I am not against prison labor as long as their constitutional rights are not violated. And I think that we need to establish more prison facilities to accommodate for the increased number of inmates that seems to be a trend now across the country. We can't just ignore them. We can't just turn them loose on parole because we don't have the room for them. We have a responsibility to society. And until we get to the core of the problem, which I, again, assert our lack of family values, lack of discipline in this country, we're going to have a place to house these criminals. So we have to address that. And we have some substantial problems in our prison system right now, as brought to light by recent events that are very troubling. And I think the administration needs to do some soul searching and some administrative polishing to correct some of the problems that they have allowed to occur.
And so let's assume we've got about just a few minutes here to wrap it up. Is there, and I've given you a lot of questions. Is there anything that you wanted to particularly make your point about yourself?
In as much as what I feel about
the job you're seeking, and,
all right. Again, I intend to be a very objective Attorney General. I will be an Attorney General that will acknowledge the feelings, the hearts and minds of the people of Montana. I will protect the people of Montana. I will demand that laws be enforced on the county attorney level. I will demand that people's rights be always considered and given top priority. And again, when government interferes with these individual rights, then the people need to be protected. Sometimes from an overreaching government, I'll be the man to do it.
Well, Senator Baer, I appreciate your coming down all this way from Big Fork for our visit, and it's been a pleasure.
Thank you. I've enjoyed it very much.
Let's see. Yeah. Okay. And thanks to the crew, and music up, and we're out of here soon. And thanks to our audience too, as well. Yeah.
Big, strange pink feet sticking straight up in the air a few moments later, Coyote figured that Pig must have had a pretty valid point. If you smoke a pack of Camels, it'll help your respiration. A bag of pork rinds can improve your circulation. Everything's great if your body can assimilate. Hey, 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 hey. If you wanna feel healthy and you wanna feel great, eat some buttered mashed potatoes with a chicken fried steak. It's essential to lose weight if your body can assimilate. Hey, hey, hey. If you wanna be tall and stronger than King Kong, remember every morning you should eat a hostess ding dong. And when it comes to wellness, all the Vegemites say a Twinkie a day keeps the doctor away. Hey, 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 just lie down on the couch and watch TV while you're hogging a bag of corn chips. It's better than jogging, it's how you stay in shape if your body can assimilate. Hey, 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 hey. I like my soda pop with sugar and my coffee caffeinated, my French fries with salt and my fat saturated.